Chapter 291, Forgotten Job Offer. Before Fujin could nod, Homura objected, "That won't be appropriate, Hiruzen. Wouldn't we suffer a loss if he speaks something that is incorrect? Though I am impressed by his analytical ability, he needs to be a part of a lot more such meetings before allowing him that right." Fujin looked at Homura. He wasn't offended as he completely agreed with his analysis. Choza silently agreed with him as well. Homura looked back at Fujin and thought, "I was even going to mention that he isn't strong enough to be given such a responsibility. But that might be demotivating for the young kid. Besides, Hiruzen should have enough confidence in his talent if he is giving him such a responsibility." However, Hiruzen dismissed his worries and said, "It's fine. After all, we old fellows can handle it if he messes up. You don't need to worry about failure, Fujin. Just do what you think is the best." Fujin nodded and replied, "All right. I'll try my best to not disappoint you and get more benefits for our village." However, he couldn't help but feel that something was off. He wondered, why is he in such a rush? I know that he isn't dying. Is Konoha short on capable diplomats? That shouldn't be the case, as Konoha is the best at diplomacy as long as it doesn't involve Kumo. Don't tell me that he just doesn't want to leave me alone in the village when he is touring outside. No, that shouldn't be the case. After all, if I mess up, the potential costs will likely be much higher than the few wind crystals I use up. I guess he really wants me to become a good negotiator. Though it'll take away some of my training time, it's fine. This seems fun and will be a good way to take a few breaks." Just like Fujin, Homura was confused as well. He wondered, why is Hiruzen pushing him so much? Even though we are old, the younger generation still has Kakashi, who is very smart at such things. And there is still Shikaku and Jiraiya who could help him out. Hiruzen smiled on hearing Fujin's reply and said, "Good." Hiruzen knew that Homura would be confused, but he didn't care much. After all, Homura had rarely interacted with Fujin. He thought, my student's generation was almost wiped out by the two great wars. The ones who survived died during Kyuubi's rampage. Though Minato's generation produced a few decent elite jounins, no one other than Minato and the clan leaders showed any interest in politics and diplomacy. While Kakashi is smart and takes responsibility when necessary, he had a very upright upbringing. First under Sakumo's care and then under Minato's tutelage. He doesn't have the same selfishness and greediness that Fujin possesses. In the future, even if Kakashi becomes the Hokage, Fujin should be the one responsible for leading Konoha's negotiations. Of course, it'd be great if Shikaku or Jiraiya aided Kakashi. Unfortunately, I don't see either of them willing to travel to foreign countries unless there is no other option. So I'll have to guide Fujin and have him prepared for this task before the next big war starts. As for Fujin's strength, Hiruzen didn't even bother considering it. After all, unlike Homura, he was quite aware of the reason behind Suna's headaches. The group rested the night at one of Konoha's patrol camps and traveled to the land of noodles the next morning. Just like in the Degarashi port, the daimyo and a few nobles were waiting for Hiruzen's arrival. However, the old daimyo had retired and passed the seat to his son. The new daimyo immediately greeted Hiruzen respectfully and enthusiastically. But before he could speak more, his eyes landed on Fujin. His eyes sparkled immediately and he exclaimed, "Fujin, it is good to see you again. Have you considered my offer?" Fujin looked at the new daimyo in surprise as long-forgotten memories slowly resurfaced. He thought, ugh, I almost forgot about him. I had only politely said that I'd consider it. Did he not get the message? Or did he get infected by shamelessness after inheriting the seed? Hiruzen and Homura were puzzled. Hiruzen asked, "What offer, Lord Daimyo?" Shikara looked back at Hiruzen and said, "A few years ago, Fujin and his squad had helped our country to come out unscathed from a disastrous situation. I was so impressed by his performance that I invited him to join my guardian team." Hiruzen replied, "Oh." He looked at Fujin and recalled, "I recall Tomatsu leading a mission here. But I don't recall him saying this. Did Fujin decide to create external relations for some reason?" He looked back at Chikara and said with a smile on his face, "Unfortunately I can't let Fujin go as of now. But, I have many capable ninjas under me. I'll assign one to serve as your guardian." Shikara was immediately in an awkward position. He wanted Fujin, not any other ninja. And if Hiruzen sent a ninja by his own will, Shikara wouldn't be able to trust that ninja. Especially if he decided to make some moves that were unfavorable for Hiruzen. Unfortunately, he couldn't reject Hiruzen directly. He cursed in his mind, "I messed up. I should have kept my calm. The boy doesn't even want to join my guardian team. I just got excited as he came here just a few weeks after I took over." Hiruzen maintained a kind smile. He obviously wouldn't let Fujin waste time here. However, this was too good of an opportunity. He could openly put a pawn in the daimyo's court. And even if he was rejected, Shikara would be very passive during the negotiations and he will try to compensate him for declining him earlier. Fujin noticed Hiruzen's purpose as well. He sighed in relief as he thought, "For once I'm thankful for how crafty this old fox is. I was afraid that I'd be put in an awkward position. Though I could refuse, it would have put us in a passive position. Now the situation is completely reversed." Shikara smiled and replied, "Thanks for the generous offer, Lord Hokage. I will be grateful to receive your help. However, let's discuss this later. Come, let's enjoy the feast that my chefs have created for us." He quickly guided the Konoha ninjas in his mansion as he thought, "I'll have to consult father on this issue. I can't afford to offend him just after becoming the daimyo." Once again, they had similar discussions along with a lavish lunch that had a large variety of noodle dishes. After a couple of hours of discussion, Konoha agreed to create a similar outpost on the border with the land of noodles. However, instead of an elite jounin, the outpost would be overlooked by a veteran jounin. In exchange, the land of noodles agreed to supply 125 fire and wind crystals each and 50 of them every year after it until the situation calmed down. In addition, they also agreed to sell noodles at a discount in exchange for discounted meat imports from Konoha. But, the biggest gain for Konoha was something else. Shikara informed the details of Hiruzen's offer to his father. The old daimyo sighed knowing the error his son made. He instructed, "It's fine. You don't have any threat from Hiruzen. But ask for someone who is young, preferably under 20. And say that he shouldn't have been a part of any black ops. In addition, stay on guard when with him. Especially if you plan on doing anything against Konoha's interest." Shikara's father was well aware of Danzo's reputation. He trusted Hiruzen but had no intention of letting his son's life be in Danzo's hands. Though he wouldn't be able to verify whether the ninja was in the Umbu or not, he knew that Hiruzen would receive the message. Shikara nodded. He put the same conditions to Hiruzen who agreed immediately. With all the matters settled, the Konoha ninjas bid farewell and left. While they were back on their way to Konoha, Hiruzen looked at Fujin and asked in a teasing tone, "I wasn't aware that you had a job offer from a daimyo. Why didn't you tell me, Fujin?" Fujin shrugged and replied, "It was years ago. I completely forgot about it until I saw him again. Besides, I thought that Tomatsu reported it to you. Hiruzen replied, so Tomatsu knew as well? Weird that he forgot to report to me. Else I'd have remembered. Fujin looked back at him and said, well, probably for the best. We did gain a huge advantage today. Hiruzen nodded. However, Homura thought, yeah, because we were lucky. It'd have gone a lot smoother if it was reported. Hiruzen began discussing the negotiations with Fujin and gave him more tips. This continued until late at night when they finally stopped in one of the newly created patrol camps in the Land of Fire. Post the Uchiha massacre, Shikaku had ordered the construction of several patrol camps deep within the Land of Fire. These camps weren't meant to patrol the borders. Instead, they patrolled important routes and at times went on random paths to patrol more thoroughly. The group from Konoha stayed here to have a peaceful sleep. However, the night wouldn't be a peaceful one. Chapter 292, The Unluckiest Squad. The ninjas in the patrol camp were very respectful towards Hiruzen, Homura, and Choza. Since Fujin was with them, he received the same treatment. They immediately made the best arrangements for everyone. While eating dinner, Fujin thought, the normal food tastes kinda bland after enjoying two exquisite feasts. Oh well, at least it's much better than my cooking. Like Fujin, everyone ate dinner. Hiruzen even praised the cook and told some stories over the dinner to reignite the will of fire in everyone. Finally, the group went to sleep in the small camp. The ninjas in the patrol camp guarded the camp with a lot of enthusiasm. After all, their beloved Hokage was resting in it. At the same time, a dozen kilometers away, 6 ninjas were hiding in the forest. They were surrounded by thick forest cover as they sat around a map that was laid on the floor. One of the ninjas asked authoritatively, are you sure that the intel is accurate, Naomasa? Naomasa replied, yes, Hideyoshi-sama. According to our intel, Konoha has established a new patrol camp here. Hideyoshi took another long look at the map. After a couple of minutes, he said, good. Let's move closer. We will destroy the camp before continuing our journey. His words shocked the group. One ninja immediately said, but Hideyoshi-sama, our target isn't this camp. Why don't we just go around the camp and avoid it? It would be troublesome if Konoha begins hunting us. Hideyoshi looked at that ninja and asked, Kaname, are you the leader, or am I? Kaname immediately became nervous and said, it's you. I am just worried that if they have any Hyaga or sensor, then we will be sensed and our mission will have to be abandoned. Hideyoshi scoffed and replied, you don't need to be worried about it. With me here, they won't have any opportunity to report us. Besides, I doubt a random patrol outpost will have a better sensor than Naomasa. Kaname sighed secretly as he thought, getting promoted to elite jounin has inflated his ego even more. Though Konoha is not as strong as it used to be, they still have many existences that can decimate us with ease. Especially since their Sunnins randomly roam throughout the country. But he is right, we should be alright. Naomasa is a very capable sensor. Hideyoshi instructed, Naomasa, lead the way. Lead the way and sense them when you are in range. Naomasa nodded. The group of 6 moved quickly through the dense forest until they were around 2.5 kilometers from the patrol camp. Naomasa made a hand seal and activated his chakra field. Immediately, a chakra field with a 3 kilometers radius spread around him. As the chakra field engulfed the patrol camp, 4 sets of eyes opened instantly. Fujin got up and wondered, are any other Konoha ninjas passing through? He didn't activate his own chakra field. Hiruzen, Homura, and Choza also got up. The Umbu guards were already up. As for the ninjas stationed at the camp, they didn't notice the chakra field. Naomasa sensed everyone and frowned. He said, Hideyoshi-sama, the camp has 9 ninjas. 4 are genins, 3 are chinins and 2 are jounins. I believe there are 2 civilians as well. His fellow ninjas were confused. Kaname asked, why does such an insignificant post have 2 jounin ninjas? Hideyoshi thought for a bit and said, it looks like Konoha is hiding something here. Or perhaps the jounins are escorting 2 important civilians. Regardless, this could be more important than our mission. He looked at Kaname and instructed, Kaname, you will engage 1 jounin while I will kill the other. The rest of you kill the chinins and genins and aid Kaname. Keep the civilians alive. I want to interrogate them. Everyone nodded. Not a single person had any fear on their face. After all, Hideyoshi was an elite jounin. And all the other 5 ninjas were jounins. However, if they knew that the 2 civilians that Naomasa sensed consisted of an elder of Konoha and the Hokage, they would have turned tail and ran until their legs couldn't carry them any further. Fujin and Choza left their rooms and appeared in the open. They had both suppressed their chakra to jounin levels. They were the ones Naomasa detected. As for the Umbu, they had completely hidden their presence. So Naomasa couldn't sense them. Fujin's eyes glowed as he observed the surroundings. Surprisingly, he didn't see anyone. He said, looks like the sensor is a bit capable. I can't see anyone in a radius of 750 meters. Choza replied, we have many sensor ninjas who can sense for over a kilometer, especially in the Yamanaka clan. Let's wait for them to approach. Fujin nodded. The 4 Umbu guards stayed behind to protect the camp while Hiruzen and Homura didn't show up outside. In a minute, 6 figures appeared in Fujin's eyes. A look of surprise appeared on Fujin's face. Choza asked, who did you see? Fujin replied, I don't recognize their chakra signature. But one has chakra high enough to be considered as an elite jounin and the remaining 5 have jounin levels of chakra. But, I have remembered the chakra signatures of all elite jounins in Konoha. Did someone get promoted recently in secret? Choza got ready for combat and grabbed his bow and replied loudly, not that I am aware of. I'll take on the elite jounin. You cooperate with the Umbu to take care of the rest. Others, move back inside the camp. The ninjas from the camp were surprised to hear that. They didn't know what was happening but obeyed Choza. Choza's words were loud enough to be heard by the 4 Umbu. They immediately disappeared and hid themselves. Naomasa sensed the movements and said, the chinins and the genins have moved inside the camp. Only the 2 jounins are waiting outside. I guess they noticed my chakra field. But they shouldn't be aware of who we are. Hideyoshi said, it's fine. It doesn't matter if they know or not. They will die very soon. In a flash, they appeared in front of the camp. Fujin and Choza frowned. The ninjas were wearing Konoha headbands but they didn't recognize any of them. At the same time, the expressions of the 6 ninjas also became grim as they realized, it isn't just a jounin. It's Akimichi Choza. An elite jounin and a rather famous one. Choza said loudly, identify yourselves. Hideyoshi knew that he wouldn't be a match for Choza one-on-one. He instructed softly, change in plans. I'll keep Akimichi Choza occupied. You 5 kill that kid and then help me. A smile formed on Fujin's face and a sword appeared in his hand as he heard his words. He thought, if there was a ranking based on luck, these 6 would definitely rank the lowest. A similar thought ran through the minds of every Konoha ninja. Of all places, they attacked the camp where their Hokage was resting despite having so few members. Hiruzen observed the situation from his room and wondered, who are these guys? Seeing their numbers, they shouldn't be here to assassinate me. But since when did the Land of Fire have such powerful rogue ninjas who impersonate Konoha ninjas? At the same time, his eyes moved towards Fujin as he thought, though I have read all his battle reports, I have never seen him fight. This would be a good opportunity to see him fight. At the same time, Homura also watched Fujin. He was curious as to why Hiruzen was so interested in grooming him. The 6 ninjas jumped towards Fujin and Choza at the same time. Choza gripped his bow staff tightly as he took his fighting posture. At the same time, he unleashed his chakra. Their attention was immediately glued to Choza. Hideyoshi gritted his teeth. He cursed, his chakra is almost twice that of mine. But we have the advantage of numbers. Unfortunately, Fujin took advantage of the momentary lapse in concentration. He immediately disappeared. Naomesa's eyes widened. He immediately grabbed his kunao and swung it in front of him and shouted, "Be careful." His shout attracted everyone's attention. They noticed a sword appearing in front of Naomesa. The kunao and the sword clashed. However, instead of hearing the clash, they saw the sword cut through the kunao as if it was hot butter. Naomesa's eyes widened. He didn't have any time to move. He could only see as the sword cut his head off. Except for Hideyoshi, the remaining ninjas immediately attacked Fujin. However, he continued with the momentum and moved a long distance away in the same direction. None of them could hit him. Soon, a thud was heard. Naomesa's body fell on the ground and subsequently dragged along the ground due to his momentum. His head fell some distance away. At the same time, the transformation jutsu was dispelled and his real appearance could be seen. Hiruzen squinted his eyes on seeing the real face. But the ninjas had no time to watch their fallen comrade. They looked at the ninja who they had thought to be an easy target. Disbelief could be seen in their eyes as they thought, Naomesa was a veteran jounin. He wasn't a weak jounin like those from smaller villages. And he was one of the best censors we had. How was he killed off so easily? However, they had no time to grieve for him. After landing on a tree, Fujin flickered back towards them. Choza engaged Hideyoshi and ensured that he couldn't move towards Fujin. Seeing Fujin, one of the ninjas opened his mouth and shot out 6 air bullets at Fujin. Fujin's eyes widened and he immediately jumped up in the air as he thought, sealless jutsu? These guys are no pushovers. Luckily I caught the censor off guard. It would have been troublesome if he ran away and hid his chakra signature. The remaining ninjas immediately began weaving hand signs while one threw shurikens at Fujin. However, they suddenly felt danger. 2 ninjas quickly moved away. However, the one who just shot out air bullets and the ninja who threw the shurikens couldn't react quickly. 2 swords pierced through both their bodies. Hideyoshi watched the scene through the corner of his eyes and was horrified. He attacked Choza fiercely while screaming in anger, "Why does this small post have a clan leader and 4 Umbu ninjas?" Chapter 293, Losses keep piling up. The 2 jounins were killed by the 4 Umbu ninjas who were hiding. Their transformation jutsu was also dispelled. Half of the intruders were dead within a minute of beginning the clash. Kaname gritted his teeth as he looked at Hideyoshi with pure hatred. He had led them all to their deaths. However, he had no time to curse him. A dozen air bullets were heading at him. He immediately dodged while looking at Fujin who appeared in front of him and swung his sword at him. He thought, he must be using wind nature chakra flow. Otherwise, Naomasa wouldn't have lost so easily. He grabbed a kunao and ducked down to avoid the sword. The sword passed harmlessly from over his head. At the same time, he jabbed the kunao towards Fujin's chest. However, Fujin's cheeks suddenly puffed out. Kaname's eyes widened and he stopped attacking and instead rolled to the side. At the very moment he moved to the left, Fujin shot a vacuum bullet at point-blank range. The bullet passed by Kaname's left ear and ripped it out completely. But, he still managed to survive and rolled away. However, such damage caused his transformation jutsu to be dispelled. Fujin watched his real face with some respect in his eyes. He thought, he is good. If instead of ducking, he had moved away, he would have been dead. And if he continued that attack, he'd be dead again. But he survived on both occasions. At the same time, Kaname was in shock as he observed Fujin. He thought, who is this kid? His attacks are relentless and uses wind vacuum jutsus without any hand seal. I don't even have any time to create a jutsu. Fujin was about to attack when he noticed someone moving extremely quickly. Kaname sensed that someone had appeared behind him and immediately swung his kunao backwards. However, his arm was blocked by a palm. At the same time, two fingers jabbed into his back and hit just behind where his heart was. Chakra poured from the fingers into Kaname's chakra point and blocked it. At the same time, several other chakra points in his body were blocked. Kaname suddenly felt a wave of weakness. He fell to the ground. Knowing that his life was no longer in his hands, he turned his head to see who the attacker was. His eyes widened in terror as he muttered, "Lo! Lord H. Hawk! Hokage!" Hiruzen didn't reply and jabbed two fingers into his neck. Kaname instantly lost consciousness and collapsed on the ground. Fujin was surprised. He thought, the gentle fist of the Hyuga? He can replicate the effects of that as well? Did he memorize the locations of some important chakra points? While Fujin was dealing with Kaname, the other Jounin was also killed by the four Umbu ninjas. Only Hideyoshi was still alive. However, he looked at Hiruzen with horror in his eyes. No matter how arrogant he was, he knew that he wouldn't last even a minute against a cage. He stopped fighting with Choza and asked fearfully, "Why is the Hokage here? Don't tell me he was the civilian that Naomasa detected." He immediately regretted his decision to attack this camp and thought bitterly, "Why did I decide to attack this camp?" Hiruzen looked at him and said, "I am more curious as to what Tsunagakura ninjas are doing in the Land of Fire and why you are attacking Konoha's patrol camp." Hiruzen was aware of the strength of the ninjas in the camp. If he had not stopped there, those ninjas would have died tonight. And considering the strength of the attackers, Konoha would have a very difficult time finding them. Hideyoshi's eyes widened. He didn't expect Hiruzen to recognize them. He had no intention of facing Hiruzen or leaving his life and death to the Konoha ninjas. He immediately began running away. However, Choza immediately moved in his path and swung his bow staff at him. Hideyoshi was surprised. He exclaimed, "So fast." Hideyoshi didn't expect Choza to be as quick as him. He raised his arms in a defensive position to block the attack. He managed to block it, but Choza's physical strength was much higher. He was hurled backwards. Hideyoshi's expression became grim as he realized, he sent me flying towards the Hokage. Hideyoshi flipped in the air and landed on his 2 feet as he slid backwards while weaving hand signs. He turned around and continued his way towards Hiruzen as he screamed, "Don't underestimate me." Wind release, blade of wind jutsu. He extended his index and middle fingers on both his hands as wind flew rapidly around them. Fujin grabbed his sword and was about to intervene when he noticed Hiruzen's actions. Hiruzen had extended the same two fingers on his right hand. Wind began moving around them as well. Hideyoshi's eyes widened. He immediately launched dozens of wind blades at Hiruzen. Hiruzen merely responded by launching an equal number of wind blades. Fujin watched with widened eyes as Hiruzen's wind blades neutralized each and every wind blade launched by Hideyoshi perfectly. He muttered, "What the hell?" However, the one who was most shocked was Hideyoshi. He thought, how can this be? This is my most skilled jutsu. I have trained it for over 2 decades. How can he be more skilled at it than me? Unfortunately, he wouldn't receive any answers. As soon as his jutsu ran out, Hiruzen disappeared and appeared in front of him and tapped his forehead with the same 2 fingers. A seal appeared on his forehead. Hideyoshi was horrified. He tried using his chakra but he felt that his body had no chakra. He tried moving but he couldn't move a muscle. He wanted to speak but not a word left his mouth. Fujin's eyes twitched as he saw this scene. He thought, what the fuck? Wind jutsus is what I excel in. But his control and preciseness far exceed mine. Even I wouldn't have been able to neutralize that attack this way. At the most, I'd have overwhelmed it by pouring more chakra into the jutsu. I can understand his taijutsu being better than mine. But despite all my training, his speed still exceeds mine. And by such a huge degree. I won't be able to keep up with him in a head-on fight. And that Juinjutsu. What a freak. Sigh, the last mission increased my confidence a lot. I thought I'd be able to at least run away from S-ranked ninjas. But now. Luckily I didn't challenge Raza. If I didn't manage to get reverse summoned in time, I'd probably be buried deep within the desert had I challenged him. Looks like there is still a considerable distance between my level and the S rank despite my high chakra. Hiruzen's little display gave Fujin a reality check. Though he relied a lot on his skill with wind jutsus, his biggest reliance was his speed. The ability to keep up and run away from any opponent was what he felt was the most important skill for a ninja. However, Hiruzen's speed shook Fujin's confidence in his speed. While Fujin was comparing himself with what Hiruzen showed, Hideyoshi's light flashed in his eyes multiple times. Hiruzen noticed the range of emotions in his eyes and said, "Don't worry. You won't be able to move." He placed his right hand on his head. Chakra flowed from his palm into Hideyoshi's brain. Hideyoshi felt immense pain as Hiruzen began reading his memories. He wanted to scream in pain but the seal didn't allow him to make any sound. In the next 7 minutes, Hiruzen read most of Hideyoshi's memories. He let go of his head as he analyzed, "I see. Tsunagakuer has already started creating plans to target the nobles from our country. This was their first squad. Unfortunately for Suna, they decided to attack this camp to do more damage to Konoha. Furthermore, their plans have a lot of inefficiencies." Hiruzen walked away from him and instructed, "Kill him and get rid of all the bodies." The 4 Umbu guards nodded and got to work. They knew that Hiruzen meant that there should be no proof of these bodies ever being here. Fujin, Homura, and Choza immediately realized the reason for this. If Hideyoshi was left alive, then Suna would demand him back. And it would be difficult for Konoha to refuse that request. Though Konoha could inform about these matters to the Wind Daimyo, it would deteriorate the relationship between the two countries. Konoha wanted to maintain the alliance with Suna, even if it was just on paper. So keeping Hideyoshi, whether dead or alive, was disadvantageous for Konoha. However, Fujin couldn't help but think, "I killed 1 elite jounin and several jounins from Suna during my promotion mission. And now another one of the elite jounins has died along with 4 jounins. Their losses just keep piling up. At this rate, will they even have the necessary forces to launch the Konoha crush? Fujin suddenly became worried. He thought, shit, if the Konoha crush doesn't happen, then a lot of future events will change. I might not have much advantage of knowing the future if that happens. Sigh, I hope Raza doesn't get too intimidated. Hiruzen read Kaname's memories as well to gain any information that he could. He was disposed of the same way as well. Hiruzen analyzed the information and concluded, these two don't have all the information. I'll have to arrange strong patrol squads in the country. In addition, the security of Fire Capital has to be increased. Chapter 294, Lying with a Straight Face. He quickly made some plans and let out a sigh, this is getting very complicated. I'll leave the planning and operations to Shikaku. He said, we are leaving now. We need to get to Konoha quickly. He looked at the ninjas who were deployed in that patrol camp and instructed, keep up your good work. Clear all traces of the battles here. And don't tell anyone about what happened today. The ninjas immediately nodded and said, yes Lord Hokage. Hiruzen nodded and instructed, Fujin, create shadow clones and sweep through the area. Check if there are any suspicious squads in a 20-kilometer radius. Fujin replied, all right. He focused on his chakra. His chakra began splitting into 2. One had 40% of his maximum chakra while the other had around 59%. The 40% part of his chakra suddenly disappeared and 20 shadow clones appeared around him. They immediately dispersed in separate directions. Hiruzen left the camp along with Fujin, Choza, Homura, and the Umbu guards without waiting for Fujin's clones to finish the search. While moving, Hiruzen's eyes landed on Fujin. He analyzed, I didn't see him much in action. Seeing that they were from Suna, I had to ensure that they don't die so that I could read memories with better accuracy. Still, just those few attacks show why he was so successful in Suna. With good control over wind manipulation and the ability to take advantage of every little opening, he ends up killing his opponent before they have a chance to display their prowess. Unlike Hiruzen, Homura wasn't aware of Fujin's capabilities. He was shocked at how good he was. He looked at Fujin and analyzed, this boy. He is very good. Though I can't say for sure how strong he is. After all, he killed that censor using a sneak attack by using the distraction that Choza created. But the ability to take advantage of such small opportunities is far more valuable than strength. After all, we are ninjas. The ability to kill is way more important than the strength we possess. If a genin kills a Kage by injuring him with a poisoned needle or kunao, then that genin is far more valuable than a Kage who sits in his village during a war. Besides, he is still just 14. He can gain strength in the future. I can see why Hiruzen is putting such emphasis on this boy. He could become just as capable as Kakashi. Though I still don't see why he wants to make him a negotiator. Fujin suddenly gained several memories. He said, my clones didn't find anyone else. It looks like those 6 were traveling alone. Hiruzen replied, all right, good work. The group rushed towards Konoha without exchanging many words. By the time the sun rose, they had reached Konoha. Choza and Fujin left while Homura accompanied Hiruzen into his office. He wanted to know why Suna attacked Konoha. One of the Umbu guards left to call Shikaku. After half an hour, Shikaku walked into the office while grumbling, why are they back so quickly? And why did he disturb my sleep? I have barely managed to sleep half my usual time in the last month. Shikaku noticed Homura in the room. Hiruzen said, "It's good to see you up so early, Shikaku. We have new intel, come sit." Shikaku's eyes twitched on hearing Hiruzen's words. He reluctantly sat down and asked, "What intel did you get?" Homura said, "On our route back, the patrol camp we stayed at was attacked by Suna ninjas." Hiruzen added, "I read their memories. It looks like Suna is planning several more attacks. Though it might be delayed a bit after we eliminated the first squad." Hiruzen informed Shikaku about the details of the attack and the intel he gained by reading memories. Shikaku's expression became serious as he analyzed the situation. After a few minutes, he said, "Hideyoshi didn't have enough information. We don't know who will be in the other squads. And we don't know what routes they will take. Though it is doubtful that they would send more elite jounins, we should operate assuming that they send elite jounins to avoid getting caught off guard and taking unnecessary losses. Creating more patrol squads will be a waste of manpower. Instead, we should plant some umbu and a couple of elite jounins in the Land of Fire. They can make a move after the Suna ninjas expose themselves. This wouldn't raise any suspicions. And once we have driven away a few Suna squads, we will ambush their rendezvous point that Hideyoshi was told about. We could disguise as Hideyoshi's squad to catch them off guard." Hiruzen thought for a bit and nodded, "All right, let's do this." However, Homura frowned and asked, "But why is Suna attacking us? We are allies." Shikaku knew that Hiruzen hadn't informed others about Fujin's actions. In fact, his mission report was already destroyed and replaced with a fake one. He said, "The recent events in the Land of Wind probably alarmed them. Whoever it was, they did a good job of directing the suspicions at us. Especially by burning the food storage facilities. That provides a lot of advantages to us. So some response is to be expected." Homura frowned. He was very suspicious and thought, "These two are definitely hiding something from me. At least Hiruzen is. The incidents in the Land of Wind are just too favorable for us for it to be done by IWA or Kumo." He said, "That isn't acceptable. If it has nothing to do, then we should engage in a dialogue and make them stop their actions. Otherwise, we would suffer as well, just like how Suna did." Hiruzen rejected his idea by replying, "I just killed one of their elite jounins. If you want to talk now, we would have to pay a big price. Besides, considering how much they suffered, it seems impossible that they didn't catch anyone. Though Suna is incompetent, they shouldn't be that useless. I'm sure they already know who the culprit is and are just using the opportunity to create trouble for us. Regardless, the situation is very beneficial for us. We just need to kill some of their ninjas. Once they realize how high the risks they have to take for these attacks are, they will stop immediately." Homura became quiet. He thought, his words make perfect sense. But I know that something isn't right. Sigh, I don't think he will tell us the truth. He looked at Shikaku, but Shikaku looked like he would close his eyes and fall asleep at any second. Having seen Hiruzen's ability to bullshit for so many years, Shikaku didn't feel anything at the lies he made up. Homura couldn't find anything from Shikaku's expression. He nodded and said, "All right. I'll take my leave." Since he wasn't getting any information, Homura left. Hiruzen instructed, "Along with this situation, also decide which ninjas to deploy in the new camps that we have to build along the borders of tea and noodle countries. If needed, you can temporarily move them to assault any Suna infiltrators." Shikaku nodded and left. After closing the door, he sighed and muttered, "Why does my workload keep increasing? And we aren't even at war." Shikaku immediately got to work. Unlike Shikaku, Fujin had no responsibilities. He rested for a day and got back to his training. His clones worked hard to master more seals. They had already learned all the new symbols that the scrolls had. And they had mastered all seals in 18 of the 58 scrolls. As for Fujin, he recalled how magnanimous Hiruzen was and absorbed the energy in the wind crystals faster than ever. After a week, he was finally called to the Umbu headquarters. Fujin walked to the headquarters while thinking, looks like they finally arranged subordinates for me. Still, I haven't led a squad since the Uchiha massacre. I hope I haven't gotten too rusty. Granted, the first missions will be easier ones. I can't wait to make them police the streets, ha ha ha. When Fujin reached the headquarters, he saw Eagle, the commander of all Umbu ninjas, waiting for him. Eagle said, "Follow me." Fujin nodded and followed him to a room. On entering, he noticed 3 masked Umbu in the room. One wore a cat mask with 3 red stripes. She had long straight purple hair. Another wore a dog mask. He had golden hair. The last one had short black hair. Unlike the other 2, he was much younger and wore a sparrow mask. Eagle said, "He will be your team captain. Hawk, I'll leave them in your care." He disappeared from the room, leaving Fujin alone with his new subordinates. Chapter 295, Subordinates. Fujin looked at his new teammates and thought, I didn't think Yojeo would be assigned under me. Shouldn't she be a part of Yamato's unit? Looks like my unit isn't made of newly selected ninjas. Makes sense, I guess, considering how many people Hiruzen recruited 2 years ago. He removed his mask and took a seat and said, "Take seats, make yourself comfortable and introduce yourself. I'm Suzuki Fujin. You can call me Captain or Ha. No, Turtle." Fujin tossed his hawk mask in the open box that contained dozens of masks while thinking, the hawk mask along with my swords is just too well known. Fame is not good for Umbu missions. I need a new disguise. Fujin had seen a turtle mask at the top of the box. Wind suddenly began flowing in the closed room. The turtle mask soon began floating in the air and moved towards Fujin. Fujin grabbed it and said, "I specialize in wind release and swordsmanship. I prefer ranged battles and using hit and run tactics." Yojeo and the blonde Umbu weren't surprised or impressed by Fujin's display. However, the third Umbu was quite impressed. He thought, "That's cool." Yojeo removed her mask and said, "I'm Uzuki Yojeo. My codename is Nico. I am currently training in various sword styles. I specialize in wind release as well. In addition, I can also use a few fire and water jutsus. And I can sense up to a distance of 800 meters. As for the battle, I don't have any preference for tactics. I can adjust to any battle style." Fujin raised his eyebrow and thought, apart from water jutsus, her skill set is almost identical to mine. At the same time, Yojeo wondered, when Lord Hokage said that I could learn from my new captain, did he mean that I could improve my sword styles and wind jutsus by observing him? The blonde ninja removed his dog mask and said, "I am Yamanaka Fumito. My codename is Inu. I specialize in Yamanaka clan secret techniques. I can sense up to 1,700 meters. My affinity is wind as well. My secondary nature is lightning. I prefer hiding and sneak attacking the enemies." Fujin nodded. Fumito looked to be as old as Yojeo. Considering that they would have been ninjas for close to a decade, it wasn't surprising that they decided to learn more than one element. Finally, the last ninja removed his mask. A smile was plastered on his face. Fujin felt that his face looked familiar, but he didn't recognize him at first glance. However, soon, Fujin was surprised. He thought, this guy became an umbu. Though Fujin didn't show it, he was genuinely surprised. The ninja introduced himself, I am Handa Bunjiro. My codename is Sparrow. My affinity is water and I am learning wind jutsus as my second nature. I have also learned the basics of being a sensor. But currently, I can only sense up to 80 meters. As for combat style, I don't have any fixed style but I prefer to drown my enemies from a distance. Fujin nodded and analyzed, Yojeo and Fumito have wind as their primary element whereas Bunjiro has it as his secondary element. In addition, all three are sensors. And Yojeo also uses a sword. Looks like my team will specialize in hitting from a distance or assassinations instead of engaging in combat directly. But, considering all the elements, the team does cover all elements. These three just miss the earth element, but Hiruzen and Eagle should know that I can use earth jutsu. The only major issue is Bunjiro. How did he go from academy to umbu in just 2 years? Though Fujin also managed to do the same, his circumstances were completely different. Fujin had learned the basic exercises of chakra control during his first year in the academy. He had graduated at the top of his year and could already use 2 elements. After graduating, he was guided seriously by an elite jounin and even received training from Hiruzen. As for Bunjiro, he hadn't even tried the tree climbing exercise until a few months before the graduation exam. Fujin wondered, was he trained seriously by someone as well? Regardless, though this feat is impressive, his chakra is far lower than Yojeo and Fumito. His strength should be weaker as well. It makes the squad unbalanced. Did Hiruzen force him into my squad just because I taught him in the past? Fujin thought for a bit, but couldn't think of any other reason. He asked, good. Do all three of you know the rules and protocols of umbu? All three nodded. Yojeo and Fumito were already a part of umbu, whereas Bunjiro was informed by Eagle. Fujin looked at Yojeo and asked, you know where the umbu training ground 9 is, right? Yojeo nodded. Fujin said, good. Take Inu and Sparrow there. I'll come in half an hour. Use that time to discuss how to coordinate properly with each other and form decent teamwork. When I come, you three will fight me. Yojeo, Fumito, and Bunjiro were surprised. Fumito thought, he will take all of us on at the same time? Sigh, why did I get such a young captain who is so arrogant? If it wasn't for my horrible luck, I'd have been an umbu captain myself. Bunjiro wondered, does he think that I'm as weak as I was 2 years ago? Only Yojeo looked at him meaningfully. She and Fumito walked out while Bunjiro followed them. Fujin saw them leave. As soon as they were out of sight, he flickered and appeared in front of Eagle. Eagle wasn't surprised to see Fujin and asked, do you need something? Fujin nodded and replied, yeah. Give me their files. I want to know everything I can about my team. Eagle nodded and handed Fujin 3 files and said, feel free to read but leave them here. The information regarding the umbu can't be allowed to exist anywhere else. Fujin nodded. He opened Yojeo's file and began reading. After he was done, he concluded, she is good. She was first part of Kakashi's squad and then Yamato's squad. And she has already begun her training under Hayate. But, if all the information here is true, then her power is already equivalent to an umbu captain. Why wasn't she allowed to take the promotion mission? Fujin began reading Fumito's file. He was surprised as he discovered, I see. He has already tried a promotion mission but failed to pass. his power should be at the Jounin level as well. No wonder I saw disdain in his eyes when I said that I will take on all three of them myself. Fujin placed his file down and began reading Bunjiro's file. This was the one he was most interested in reading. As he read, Fujin thought, though I guided the five of them, I didn't have much expectations from any of them. At most I expected them to reach low Chunin levels. After all, none of them had the talent or determination to get stronger. Guess I was wrong. I wonder what happened to the remaining four. He read all his information and analyzed, I see. He and Tatsuya were placed in the same squad under a Jounin who took an interest in guiding them properly. And he is quite hard-working as well. He managed to become a Chunin around 6 months ago. But he was the only one from his squad who got promoted. Not bad. No wonder he managed to join the Umbu. But his strength doesn't compare to the other two and is probably average among Chunins. Though he is 6 to 7 years younger than the other two. Still. Fujin looked up at Eagle. Though he couldn't see his face due to the mask, he could see that Eagle's eyes were glued on him. He thought, I don't understand my team. One is ready to be promoted to Umbu captain, one has failed the promotion mission and the third is a newbie. What does he aim to achieve by giving me such an imbalanced team? Eagle asked, is there any issue? Fujin handed over the files and said, no. I do have a question though. Since my team is newly formed and has a new member, we will have to police the village for a few months, right? Eagle was confused by the question. He replied, no, who told you that? You will be assigned field missions right away. Fujin asked, won't that be risky with an inexperienced ninja? Eagle replied, the other two of your subordinates are quite strong. And Lord Hokage believed in your strength as well. So I believe that his safety wouldn't be an issue. Fujin replied, all right. He left while thinking, as I expected, Hiruzen was behind such a weird team. Though Eagle's logic makes sense, it is very flawed. Knowing Hiruzen, he should have other motives. Unfortunately, I can't guess them. While Fujin was thinking, his new subordinates had discussed and planned for a few minutes before stopping and waiting for Fujin. Yojo